program. So we got a new blueberry breeder 4 years ago, and she has established blueberry breeding from two types of blueberries, southern high bush and another one that I'm not going to remember, but that is also adapted to the south and is very climate tolerant, resilient, drought tolerant, heat tolerant. The quality is not very good, but it has a lot of resilience capacities, so they are crossing both of them to try to make them more resilient. So, and they are testing, here we have more than 50 different cultivars, but later they also test how they do with high tunnels, like you can see in there, because the problem that we have in here is that these blueberries usually they flower a little bit earlier than the northern varieties of blueberries, so they are going to start to flower in March, and that is really good for farmers because you can start producing blueberries before than anybody else, so you can sell them for higher price. The problem is that if you have, like this year, one of those years that in February, March you have freezing temperatures and you have your flowers, you can lose your harvest because the flowers freeze and you just later don't have blueberries. So that is kind of a problem. That's why they are testing how they grow in the high tunnels to get protected from the cold.
But this is where you were saying about the solar panels, if they're closed at night, that would prevent some of the...
Let's talk about two different structures of solar array. So one, we have the single axis tracking like what you saw on ours. And if you remember the three beds that we had, we had the middle and the two outer ones. So I could kind of see these as being the two outer ones, and then you have a larger path for being able to pick off of each one. And what that's going to do is you're going to have more precipitation getting to the outside edge of these, which more moisture in the ground for the perennials is always a helpful thing different times of year. But also the closer that the perennials are going to be to the edges of the panels, that's probably also where they're going to have more of that mitigating the frost damage that's potential, because most of that heat is going to be captured underneath the solar panel versus out in the open where there's nothing above it. Then the consideration there is if these are going to be on the outer sides, they're also going to get less sunlight. Maybe the berries don't mind having a little bit less sunlight. Kind of depends on what part of the country they're in, how hot things are.
I think these guys will not matter that much. They grow perfectly there, and with the shade of the tunnel, and they do fine. They like being in the shade of the tunnel. So
that would be something to experiment with. Are you planting on the outer two beds, or do you sacrifice the whole lane and you only do one row? Or maybe you put both of these really close to each other and then you pick on the outsides of them. Those would be different experiments I would do with perennials. The other structure we have is the south facing pick. So east is this way, west, you have south. All the panels would be tilted up like this, and it would cast shade down this side. What Alvaro was talking about. What's that?
Northeast there.
Northeast?
Northeast, yeah.
The sun? East, west, north, south. Okay, so facing south this direction. If you had your panels facing the south, the sun is further to the south during the winter time, so then the shade gets cast out farther. If you're having issues of plants waking up too early in the spring, planting them closer to, so imagine the panels are like this facing south. The closer you have the plants to the back edge of a fixed solar array, so these panels are not moving throughout the course of the year, the more shade it's going to get throughout the winter and through later part of the spring. The further away you put them onto the next row, so the closer they get to this front edge, the sooner that they're going to get sunlight in the spring. And so maybe there's some, I wish I had more arms to show you all these things. So thank you. There we go. So you have your different rows. If I have my plants here, they're going to have more shade through probably early summer before they get hit with sunlight. Whereas the closer I have them to here, they might have sunlight throughout most of the winter time, except for maybe 1 month. So if you're trying to protect your plants from waking up too early to have flowers, then it's a question of where within this space do you want to have your row of perennials. Does that make sense?
So these guys usually they flower in March, April, and they are going to produce berries through June, July, August, and now they are just getting sunlight. We really think that, so when they produce the flowers, they don't have any leaves. They lose all the leaves in all the leaves in winter. So when they are putting out the flowers, and later they put out the leaves, all of what they are doing is using all the reserves that they have in the stem and in the roots to produce those flowers and those leaves. So what they are doing now is getting all of that energy, because they don't have any fruits. They are getting all of that energy, storing in the stems and in the roots. So later in the spring, when they start flowering, they can use all of that energy to produce the flowers and the leaves, etc. Because they start producing, it's very curious, because they start producing the flowers before they produce the leaves. So that is all with reserves that the plant has already in the stems, etc. Usually all the crops that I am used to, they are going to produce all the leaves before they put the flowers, because the leaves are the basically the producing part that is feeding the flowers and the fruits. But in here it kind of happens the contrary. They produce the flowers before they produce the leaves, because they as they are perennials, they store the energy